All right, so welcome to week 2 of social entrepreneurship. Thanks for everybody who got their ideas submitted before class. We're going to go into them today as tonight's lecture is all about idea generation. So one of the themes for this entire course is that we are going to stretch and strengthen your idea generating muscles. And a little bit of the agenda for tonight's class. We will go over the readings and have a little bit of a discussion about some of the things you all learned about how to come up with ideas, as well as the benefits of note-taking. We'll go through how to become an idea machine. And then we're actually going to have some fun discussing our new ideas. So we'll have a conversation reviewing some of the entries in the Google Sheet that folks came up with. We'll pick a few and actually come up with some of the first steps we would want to do. And then, as any good second class of the semester, we'll spend some time talking about Questlove and his creative quests. And then we'll wrap up with any questions you all have and talk about the plan for next week. So would love for some folks to go off mute here and let's get a little bit of a conversation going to start the class, and would love to hear what people learned first and foremost about idea generation. As you read some of the articles and started to come up with these ideas, what's one new learning or insight that you had about idea generation?
I guess I can say something. I think for me personally, it was easy to come up with the first few, because I think there was some stuff that there's been up there before, you know what I mean? But I think when it came to coming up with past maybe the fourth one, it got a little more difficult. And so I think I then pivoted towards being a little bit more abstract and being okay, it doesn't necessarily need to be a congruent company idea at the moment. Maybe if it's just a thought about the world or a thought about something in general, maybe that's better than nothing to fill up the 10 ideas,
Definitely, that's a great insight, Alex. Who else would like to share what they learned as they were coming up with their ideas? Jorge?
It's hard to be original. I felt I was coming up with different ideas, and some of them felt like they were already a thing, and I think it was kind of difficult to really come up with something that's a little different.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And one thing that I'll point out too is that they don't have to be original ideas. As we go through this each week, you're not going to be the first person to ever have the thought or the idea. It's often the implementation, which we'll get into, that makes a difference. Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think looking at other people's ideas in the sheet kind of gave me inspiration. So kind of the collaborative aspect, like if someone had a food related idea, that may have given me inspiration for another food related idea, or something that may have been completely different than their idea, but still kind of one idea led me to another, which was helpful in that process.
Totally. And that's absolutely how it works. Sometimes it's a rabbit hole of how do you come up with the ideas, kind of like going down a Wikipedia rabbit hole when you just start clicking on subpages. Kai, how about you?
Yeah, I noticed that most of mine ended up coming from situations where I realized there was a lack. So for example, one of mine was a magnet clip where you can put recipes on a cupboard, because my grandma was making cookies and had it like a zip tie really attached to a cabinet. And so we're like, oh, a solution to that could be this. So I feel like that's where most of the ideas came from.
Totally. And one of my hypotheses is that as we go through this whole class, you guys are going to start coming up with ideas throughout your daily lives as you see slight inefficient things, or hey, maybe there's a better way of doing it. Maya, how about you?
Similar to what Kai said, I think it was interesting because a lot of my ideas came from inconveniences, in day-to-day, things that I felt like I could have used more help with. And it also was helpful to look at other people's ideas. I felt similar in that regard.
And how about you, Rohan?
Yeah, kind of similar to what people have been talking about. A lot of my idea generation pipeline was facilitated and catalyzed just through being aware of my environment. So one of my ideas was having a water bottle like whose inner lining kind of infuses the water and it's like reusable. Another example was, you know, one was like a running music app that alters the music tempo based on your heart rate. And so I facilitated like kind of these ideas just by like looking around me, like stuff that I did earlier today, whether it was like on the treadmill, looking at the water bottle. So just looking at my direct, you know, physical environment and just what I engaged in recently and trying to see like how can we amplify, elevate that.
Totally. And the workout idea you had with the music as well, there's a company called Palantir that was started by a couple of recent Georgetown alums that does exactly that. It's like audio files to get you to work out, and it makes it sound like you're being chased by a helicopter or something, so you want to run faster. It's
That's awesome.
Pretty cool app if you want to check it out. Pia, how about you?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of, I guess, echo what everyone else is saying. I feel like I came up with all of my ideas about things that irritated me, like in my daily life. So like one of my ideas was like, I hate that when you like make your bed and you sleep, like the flat sheet gets kicked down at the bottom. Like I hate that. And like you can't sleep without the flat sheet because then you have to wash your comforter and that's like a pain in the ass. So like something to like buttons or snaps that you snap the like sheet onto your comforter. And like that's a problem that bugs me on a regular basis whenever I make my bed.
I love that. That's a great one. And you know, I think a lot of people will first come up with solutions to solve problems that you see yourself and that you're dealing with. And as we'll go through the semester, we'll talk about customer discovery and getting to know customers. And one of the key tenets on that part of the entrepreneurial process is to not fall in love with your solution, but to fall in love with your customers and their problems and pain points, and like you want to serve them. And in several of these cases, you might be solving things for, you know, college age students, but if you come up with a different idea that's like helping working moms with a solution, you know, then it's really falling in love and empathizing with that type of persona so that you can better understand their day-to-day struggles and how you can create solutions that can make their lives better. So next question, I'd love to hear a couple people's thoughts about where were you when you came up with your ideas? Like physically, were there different locations did you come up with all 10 ideas sitting in the same chair? You have like a thinking chair? Were some of them on the treadmill, in the kitchen? Kunal, how about you?
Yeah, so a couple of my ideas actually came when I was like driving around, just because there's a lot of things on the road that kind of like irritated me. Like, for example, I remember one time I was like at a stoplight for like 2 minutes and no one else was there. So I came up with the idea of using like AI to, you know, make a more efficient like traffic system to like allow me to go through like a traffic intersection without wasting my time. So there's that.
Nice. I love that. One hack that works on some intersections, if you flash your lights on and off, on and off, on and off, it makes the lights think that there's a bunch of cars there waiting and it changes faster. It doesn't work everywhere, but worth a shot. Abby, how about you?
Gotcha.
I came up with a couple of mine when I was reading, and I would read and then I'd close the book and then write it down and then read and then they just kept coming.
Awesome. And Andres, how about you?
Yeah, basically I came up with most of the time while I was like walking around. I like to like think and walk, like not just inside my house, but like outside too. But like an example of when I was inside, I was like passing by my fridge and I was like, oh, what am I gonna eat today? And then I came up with like, oh, what if we had an app that would like recommend food that you should try out that's new or food that's like close to what you have? Because I realized I only had chicken to eat.
Cool. Very cool. Quick show of hands. How many of you looked at other classmates' ideas this week as you were putting your ideas in? Awesome. And for those of you who didn't really notice them, I recommend doing it next week. And you can look back at what they came up on week one, and these lists are going to build throughout the semester. And it is very rare that one of the ideas you came up with, you know, your first idea is going to be the best one. This is like an ongoing process where they'll get better and you'll start to be able to kind of give a sniff test, if you will, on initial ideas. So one more question on the readings before we dive into tonight's lecture. Can somebody share one benefit of taking notes and perhaps having like one notebook or maybe a whole stack of little field notebooks And maybe I've been doing this for so long that I have stacks on stacks of field notebooks. What's a benefit of taking notes? Yeah, Thea?
I really like how one of the articles compared it to be like having the trained muscle to be like a superpower almost, and like it takes 2 weeks to weaken. And I listened to the Tim Ferriss podcast who they mentioned. So like I kind of he's already gone in depth on like the rest of the people in their note taking habits, but it made me think of a cool one that I read about recommended from like his thing last week, is that someone said to use like note cards and like categorize it by color, and then it's like I'm hyper organized like type A, so like I want to try and adopt that system. I thought that was a really cool thing that I read about last week.
Awesome. I love it. And I'm also a type A color coder. My whole schedule is different colors for different projects. And it helps a lot just to have your mind create the connection to where the idea came from. So good ideas come from bad ideas, but only if there's enough of them. And this is my man, Seth Godin. We'll talk about him a couple times throughout the semester. If you've never heard of Seth Godin, I recommend you Google Seth Godin blog. This man has posted a blog post every day for the past 16 years, 0 days missed. All right, there's a lot to be said about showing up consistently. He is an expert marketer. He has had some brilliant ideas. He's written tons of books, and he's had some terrible ideas too. So that's part of the process. And so there's this kind of sweet spot in the Venn diagram of good ideas, and that seems like a bad idea. And in that sweet spot is often where some of the best businesses can come from. For example, Airbnb was like this when they first got started. Like having strangers stay in your house when you're not there in 2007 sounded like a terrible idea. But I believe they launched it right around the Democratic National Convention in 2008, and it worked out really well. Another anecdote I'll share about Airbnb is when they got the company started, they were broke. Like they weren't making any money. They weren't sure how to pay their bills. So they literally made breakfast cereal. They made Obama O's, which were Cheerios, and like Captain McCain, Captain Crunch, and went around selling them and made like $100,000 selling political cereal. And that's how they were able to keep their business afloat when they're first getting started. Now they're worth, I don't know, billions of dollars. So it's worth noting you can have a business and something you're building and you care a ton about, but if that's not paying your bills and giving you money for rent and gas and food, it's okay to have a side hustle to do something else for a little while to make sure you can sustain yourself and maybe your team in order to get that thing up and running. There's another great startup called Hatch Apps, which is based here in DC, and it's kind of like Squarespace for apps where you can kind of drag and drop and build the apps. When they were first getting started, they were also going broke. And this was, I guess, 2016, again, during a political election year. They'd heard the story about Airbnb. Raise your hand if you've ever played Cards Against Humanity. You guys know the cards game? Yeah. So they made that for the political sphere in the election, and they call it like the election 2016 Cards Against Humanity. And they made more than $75,000 in like 3 days. It like went viral on the internet. Everybody was buying it. My friend Parham, his bedroom was just stacks of card games, like a little maze to like get out, and he had to package them all up and ship them. But that gave them like 6 months worth of runway to keep building Hatch before they were able to get customers. So great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. It's a great Eleanor Roosevelt quote. And a life lesson I want to pull out there is to not gossip and to not talk about people, especially not to talk negatively about people, whether they're in the room or not in the room. I can tell you that nothing positive in life comes from talking shit about other people. And if you are in the habit of gossiping and then you leave the room, guess what? Those people are probably going to gossip about you. Whereas if your friends realize like, hey, if you start saying mean stuff about stuff and Mike's in the room, he's gonna be like, guys, cut it out. Like, we don't need to say that. If you have a problem, why don't you go talk to them to their face? And I think it's a good rule to not say anything about anyone that you wouldn't be comfortable saying to their face. And with that, I'm trying to help you guys develop some great minds and come up with a lot of ideas. So how do you become an idea machine? Step one is to write 10 ideas. James Altucher does it per day. I'm just asking you guys do it per week so we strengthen this muscle. I'm not trying to make you an Olympic weightlifting idea creator on day one, but over the course of the semester, I think you'll get a lot better at it. And it doesn't matter if they're good or bad ideas. It's just the concept of making the ideas and then figuring out of perhaps the 10 ideas you come up with, which 1 to 3 do you want to begin to execute on? And then once you start coming up with ideas, you can come up with ideas for others and give them to people. They are a gift, right? If you have a company that you love and you have ideas about how they could improve their website or their marketing, send them an email, all right? I spent 5 years of my life running Waveborne sunglasses because I bought a pair of the sunglasses and I emailed the founder. I emailed getinvolved@waveborne.com because I had ideas about what they could do to make the website better, and I just wanted to help. I had no idea that email was going to change my whole life. If I didn't send that email, I probably wouldn't be here because I wouldn't be qualified to teach you about entrepreneurship because I wouldn't have spent so much time wearing the shades and exploring my entrepreneurial journey, all right? The other thing that a few of you touched on that you started doing is this concept of idea sex, where you get a few ideas, you throw them in the bedroom together and you see what happens in 9 months or 9 minutes, however you want to play that out. And when you're able to apply them, especially across industries, if there's like a food idea and an education idea and a healthcare idea, maybe you mix them all up and you're able to come up with something brand new. That's one of the ways you'll get to some more original, great ideas that you can send to other people. And part of this whole process of idea generation is putting them out to the universe, trying to add value and detaching from the outcome, not having expectations about what's going to happen. And that creates tremendous opportunities for good things to manifest and be attracted to you because of your willingness to come up with these ideas and share them with people who can benefit. And the best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas. You need to flex your idea muscle. And so now I'm going to get out of the slides. We are going to look briefly. Can you all see this? Is this big enough that you guys can see what's on here? Okay, cool. And this is the 10 ideas spreadsheet, so feel free to bring it up. We're going to talk for a couple minutes about some of the ideas. I'm just going to call them out. And I'm actually going to put you all in breakout rooms to have you share some of the ideas and see if there's any patterns or themes you can come up with. And I want to make this as interactive and kind of talking about them, but we've got one here, an app that tells you every happy hour deal in your area. Great idea. There's an app called Loople. My friends made it. It does Baltimore and DC happy hours. It already exists. There you go. Active noise canceling for cars. That's an interesting idea. We've got heated roads that automatically melt snow and ice. So there's some similarity there between the car that blocks the sound and also protects you. Maybe there's tires that you could do that could melt the ice. I don't know. Let's see. We've got a snowball making machine. That sounds pretty awesome. And it could be for snowball fights or for selling snowballs during the summer, depending on what kind of a snowball making machine it is. We've got a facial recognition to unlock your car. There we go. I mean, Apple's making a car. I'm pretty sure that will be part of the unlock feature in a few years, gang. We've got a collapsible water bottle. I've seen that for dogs. They've got the little collapsible bowl you can like bring to the park with your dog and then fill it up. I don't know how exactly we make that for humans. We've got a CBD lotion company specifically for people with arthritis. There you go. Reusable sticky notes. Fun fact about sticky notes, they were actually a mistake. They were an accident. The guy wasn't trying to make sticky notes. He was trying to make something super duper sticky and realized he made something that was not very sticky at all and could be, kind of pulled off and pasted different places. So there's another way to think about it there in terms of how the ideas can come up. I'm going to get you guys into breakout rooms. Give me a second to stop sharing here so I can figure out where the breakout room button is. And while I'm getting these set up, the goal is for you guys to randomly be assigned and talk about, let's say, 5 of the best ideas that you guys see on the spreadsheet. They can be your ideas, they could be somebody else's ideas. And then we will come back in, what is the time here? I'm gonna give you 8 minutes. So you'll have enough time to go through a few of the ideas. and see if there are any patterns you come up with. And I encourage you to read through the spreadsheet. And I guess let me put the link here in the chat so everybody has it easy to get to if you don't have it up already. So there's that. I'm going to open the rooms for 8 minutes. Another thing I want to mention too, we'll use breakout rooms throughout the semester. There is a concept called listen only mode where I might pop in your room, but if I show up like this, it means I'm just there to listen. Don't worry that I'm there. I'm slightly checking on to make sure you're not completely doing nothing productive, but I'm not going to be a stickler there. You're going to talk about your ideas or whatever it is. The goal is just to kind of pop in. If you have questions, I'll be there to help answer them. There's not much in this class, but I want to just introduce you to this like listen only mode. You see me like that. And with that, you are all going into your rooms. And I'll see you back here in 8 minutes. Welcome back. We'll see everybody in 4 seconds. All right, welcome back, everybody from Breakout Room Land. Would love for maybe somebody from a few of the rooms just to share what were a couple of the best ideas that you guys discovered as you talked through them. I want to hear maybe, let's say 5 total. Liam, we'll go with you and see who else.
I don't know well, maybe a couple ideas. We thought it was interesting that a lot of people, and especially like 3 of the people in our group, looked at the problem of like volume of information on the internet, and we looked at ways to filter that down in different ways. So like one of us had something like masterclass, but with like specific instructions on how to do things like you'd see in a YouTube video, but that's sort of organized so that the content's like higher quality. We had someone who wanted to do like news that's all fact checked. So it's a lower volume of news, but you have everything in there and you know it's legitimate. And we had a couple ideas there in our group, and I think other people in the class who had ways to like filter down that information.
Nice, that's great. And it's good to see a kind of a theme arising there with the information. And with all of the information on the planet, it's less about creating information at this stage of the game. It's more about curating it. Think about how do you curate it, whether it's all fact-checked news or all, a certain type of information. Pia, how about you?
Our group, I think, like talked a lot about things that would have like a lot of utility in your daily life. So like something we talked about was like the oatmeal maker that doesn't explode the oatmeal in your microwave, or like a washer and dryer where like you don't have to shift stuff from the washer to the dryer. Or like also like something that would sort your recycling, because a lot of recycling goes to waste. So I think those were the ideas that our group kind of gravitated towards.
Nice. And if that washer dryer could not lose socks, I think that would be a big value add as well. Nicholas, how about you?
Yeah, so with our group, I know Maya came up with the idea of like crampons for shoes, like those ice cleats. And one of my ideas was like replaceable soles / shoe bottoms for like running shoes, because they get worn out so easily. So we thought about like replaceable soles for like everyday shoes for anything like running, hiking. And then at the end, we sort of thought, what if they also like the replaceable shoe soles became slippers as well? So you could put them in the shoe and replace them. And
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Avery, how about you?
Our group noticed kind of just one theme that appeared in a lot of the ideas is kind of the theme of like environmental or sustainably conscious, just different inventions. We saw one that was like water bottles that said how many years it would take for the plastic bottle to decompose on the label, which we thought was interesting, like something to deter people from using plastic. So just that was one of the themes we noticed through a lot of the inventions, which we thought was really interesting.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing those ideas. What we're going to do next is we're going to go back into the same breakout rooms with the same groups, and you're going to have 8 minutes to think of 3 different ideas, 3 of the most interesting ideas you've come up with, and then come up with a list. And you can do this in a Google Doc, figure out some way to just kind of document it. And what are the next steps? Like if you wanted to take this idea and actually bring it into reality, what would you need to do it? So I want you guys to start thinking about, hey, we've got these ideas. What is, not what do you do in 5 years when you're making millions of dollars, but like, how would you sell the first washer dryer set that you don't have to move it and promises it will not lose socks? And it could be a manufacturing next step. It could be talking to potential supply chain partners. It could be doing customer discovery interviews, which we'll get to in a couple of weeks. But I want you to start thinking about how would you go about implementing 3 different ideas. So you got 8 minutes, maybe spend 2 or 3 minutes per idea. I think you guys have already come up with some really good ones that are interesting. And there's no right or wrong answer here, by the way. The goal is really just to help you in small groups start thinking about the implementation stage once you come up with an idea that you want to move forward with. Do you guys have any questions about that before we jump back into the breakout room? Cool. There we go. All right, welcome back, everybody. So hopefully you enjoyed the breakout room activities to start thinking through how do you actually implement some of the ideas that you're coming up with. So I'm going to share my screen here to wrap us up with some Questlove. And so Questlove, if you don't know him, he's the drummer for The Roots, is one of like the dopest humans on the planet from my perspective. He has not only insane musical talents, you got a quote here, "I don't want to tell people what to do, I want to tell them what they can do." And so in his book, Creative Quest, which I 10 out of 10 recommend if you haven't picked an audiobook for the semester yet, this is just a gem of like 8 straight hours of hanging out with Questlove, dropping knowledge about how he comes up with ideas to connect different musical things. He also has a cookbook downstairs in my kitchen. I have the Questlove cookbook. It's pretty awesome. And part of his thought process is to be receptive to new ideas. And when you come up with them, and I think it was Abby, somebody mentioned they were reading a book and then they came up with a new idea and wrote it down. That's a big part of it, is to kind of summarize your learnings, whether it's in this class or other classes, just to jot down some notes about what you learned and try to isolate what your insights are. What's a new insight, something that perhaps makes your eyebrows go up? You're like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. That's an unexpected outcome or idea or new learning. And then how can you turn those insights into a short thesis statement or a hypothesis? I'm not going to go high school English on you, but let's say it's the last sentence of a first paragraph of a 5-paragraph essay. Like, what's that thesis, the main point that you have where there could be some value created, some change you could create in the world, and perhaps a product or service with some features, which means benefits that somebody would be willing to buy. And then once you have these hypotheses, you're going to want to experiment and test and share the results, constantly update your hypotheses, which is the perfect segue into what we're going to talk about next week, as next week's class is going to focus on the business model canvas. And so I got a list here of a couple readings and videos to go through to help prime you for next week. The business model canvas is a one-sheet piece of paper that has replaced the 40-page business plans that people used to write 20 years ago. And in each, and on the one sheet, there are 9 different sections, and each section is filled in with a hypothesis. It is literally, what you think to be true about a certain part of the business. And we'll go into more details next week about the business model canvas. You guys will fill them out. The key thing to note is that they're all filled out in pencil. There is nothing that you can ever write in the first version of a business model canvas that is worthy of being written in pen, because these things are going to change. You're going to have insights and perhaps assumptions or hunches and guesses about what's going to be true to put in these 9 different sections, whether it's the customer segments or the cost structures or the partnerships, and some of the other sections. You're going to guess, and then we'll go into 2 weeks from now as we talk about customer discovery interviews. You're going to go talk to people to see if what you have guessed and put in the different parts of these business model canvases as you start to think about implementing an idea is actually true. And a lot of times, as you're thinking about what part of the business makes the most sense, you're going to ask the question over and over again, what is my riskiest assumption? And when I say riskiest assumption, such that if you're wrong about what you're assuming fits in this one part of your business model, the whole thing's screwed. It's not going to work. You're going to go bankrupt. Nobody's going to buy it. Your customers are going to be upset. You're going to want to identify where is the biggest risk, and then you're going to talk to as many people as possible to validate or invalidate that hypothesis. So that's a little foreshadowing for what's to come. I just want to wrap up this first class by saying thanks for everybody's attention. Great to see the 10 ideas flowing into that spreadsheet. We will spend a little bit of time each week talking about those 10 ideas. In 4-ish weeks, we'll pick one that folks can work on. You're welcome to pick an idea to work solo. You're welcome to pair up with up to 3 other classmates in this class, or if you have roommates or friends in other parts of the university, I encourage you to start sharing your ideas with them as well. I wish we could say, like, when you're at the dining hall having meals together, talk about it, but maybe you guys can have Zoom meals with friends. I don't know. It's a little hard with COVID and Zoom land. But I want to encourage you, as you're coming up with these ideas, to not just like keep them in your head and like be scared of sharing them. The more people you talk to with any ideas you're coming up with, the more you can refine it and get insights and advice, perspective from them to improve it. All right, because it's going to take lots of people looking at, thinking about, chewing on, perhaps spitting out some of your ideas for them to get better and better over the course of the semester. And with that, thanks again for a great week 2 here of social entrepreneurship. Looking forward to week 3. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.